Good afternoon, guys. Dr. Ken Nordberg back again. Another seminar I'm anxious to present. A lot of new stuff in here, a lot of good tips for deer hunting, for stand hunting. You know, last time I mentioned that nowadays with whitetail so used to all the hunting methods we use and all the lures and baits and all that stuff out there, it's getting harder and harder to fool older bucks, or well, older deer, even does that are, say, about 3.5 years of age or older, and they can live up to 14 years. The bucks only about half that, up to 7 years, most of them. But after they get up to that age 3 thing, they've learned enough, so they become really hard to hunt. And so what the stand hunter is going to learn to do is always hunt at a spot where they don't expect you. You know, they have no reason to believe you're there. They've never found you there before, for one thing. Well, that doesn't happen for a whole season. With bucks, older bucks, that likely happens the first day you hunt at any one spot. And a lot of times you don't know it because they found you from downwind. You know, maybe they were half, 2-3 blocks away, walking downwind where you're sitting, and of course, you know, human sense spread vertically as well as horizontally from a stand side, you know, a tree stand. So your scent gets to the ground pretty fast from a tree stand. And so, but they smell you, yeah, that's a human, all right, and then they might walk this way and that way and note that, gee, it's not moving. That scent is moving steadily along this line, going downwind, not a straight line, but, you know, it's fanning out as it goes downwind. But it doesn't take an experienced whitetail long to realize that you're just sitting there. And your scent's not getting stronger, indicating you're coming toward them, and it's not getting weaker, indicating you're going away, and that sort of thing. So they can tell if you're a stand hunter. And like I've said before, they kind of like stand hunters because once they've got them located, they don't have to worry. They can live normal lives elsewhere within their ranges, which they do every day. And where all the hunters are stand hunters, that whitetails live very normal lives during hunting seasons. And seldom abandon their home ranges. It's the still hunters, the guys making drives, that force them to abandon their ranges. But us stand hunters, we don't do that. We don't pursue deer. We don't trail them in the woods, sneaking, doing all these kind of things. We just go somewhere and sit. And that's just fine with whitetails, especially the older ones. So what you got to do nowadays is keep changing stand sites. You can't sit in one spot for the whole season. Us Nordbergs, we got 6 ways of hunting, of stand hunting. It's all stand hunting methods. And we switch from one to the other quite calmly during the hunting season. Well, 7 ways actually. Progressive stand hunting, which is part of what we do all of the time, and we did again this year. And then I guess you could call it using a lure scent like doe and estrel type lure scent on a crosswind setup. And you don't have to even use that. You can be sitting crosswind anywhere actually, but that's another basic approach that we use. But from day to day, we commonly use one of our kinds of stand hunting, and then the next day another one, and the next day another one. But every half day we move. You know, you probably could do almost as well or better even where you hunt, where there's more deer and maybe more bucks with better genetics for big antlers. You could probably do better, with what we do. But we hunt where there aren't many deer, there aren't many big bucks, and yet we manage within the area that we hunt to keep getting at least four mature bucks every year. 105 now since 1990. So that's pretty darn good buck hunting. But we don't depend on one stand site. We never. In the course of a hunting season, each one of us probably uses up to 24 stand sites. Most of them we haven't even seen before we began using them. We discover a really fresh size of a big buck on the way to a stand site somewhere, and bingo, gee, where's the wind coming from? And oh, it's coming from that direction. Well, I got to sit over this way to be crosswind or this way to be downwind, whatever. And you're looking around and say, well, where'd be a good spot to sit? And a lot of times it's in the dark with a flashlight in your hand. And you know, you get to know the area, you think, oh gee, there's a whole bunch of, a whole big clump of evergreens up here on my right. That would be a perfect spot in these conditions. I'm going to go there. But these kind of things are going through our minds whenever we're going to a stand site. But we always sit close to very fresh tracks and or droppings or some other kind of buck sign, like maybe a ground scrape during the season when they're making them. That's where we sit. So we're always, like I say, in the ball game. We're in the ballpark. We're close to where we see a buck. Our odds of seeing a buck are infinitely greater than somebody's been sitting in a tree stand for 5 days in a row, or 2 weeks. No, you know, our odds of seeing one are pretty good everywhere we sit because we do these things. So, anyway, the buck that John took, the third buck he took this past season, the one, when I heard him shoot, when I shook my head and said, oh geez, there goes my hunting license. I'm all done. But anyway, there were several things going on in this one, and they're all good things for a stand hunter to know about. Really good things. John was sitting in an old stand site. I found a thing many years ago. I established a trail where they had to take a 2-mile detour to the north and then back around the other side of a big high hill with real steep sides that we call Moose Mountain. And the feeding area up there was on top of it, an open area on top of this mountain. But you couldn't go there when you had a west wind, northwest wind, southwest wind, west wind, and you couldn't go straight in there to this place from the old logging trail that used to be in that country. You could just go straight in there because you screw it up every time because you're going downwind one way or the other to get there, and you couldn't do that. So I thought, well, we'll go all the way around the north end. That's a 2-mile detour. That was the ideal thing about it. You could go, you could go there with any wind blowing from the south to north, southwest, west, northwest, north, going around the back side, because once you were there and you started up the hill, you were downwind or crosswind. And to do it in darkness, steep hill on one side, and over here a big marsh with a stream going through it, and beavers. And last year the beavers had dammed up a lot of that water on that side, so the trail that we had going along the bottom side of that mountain were underwater. And this is going to be a terrible year for taking that hike around Moose Mountain, all rocky and heavily timbered. So we started thinking about that I think it was 3 years ago. Yeah, it was 3 years ago. Well, before that time, when I made that trail around there, I went to 3 different stand sites on the back side, and well apart from one another. And every one was worth a buck. You know, you had a chance to take a buck, or a buck you turned down. You'd see bucks every time we went back there. And then we started, when Jimmy started hunting there, we set up 2 stand sites on the east side, and at the top of that steep hill up to where the opening is, where this feeding area, full of red osiers, a great browse area during November gun seasons. But anyway, went all the way around, and then they were taking bucks there. Jimmy got his first buck up there, and John had several opportunities and did take bucks up there, and it seemed like boy, that Moose Mountain was a good place to get a buck. Well, 4 years ago, standard thing, John went around the mountain and to get over on the east side and then come up the steep slope through this heavy timber, a lot of blowdowns there. It was really a kind of a wig-wagging thing to get up that hillside. And he no sooner, well, he wasn't even quite at his stand site already, and all of a sudden something started snorting. Well, that particular morning, your breeze was blowing. There was a little bay-like opening there on the east side of that opening, and full of deep grasses and everything. And when he started, he wasn't at his stand site yet, and there was some snorts over there, and then he heard the deer bounding away, and that was in the dark. You know, and that happens to us once in a while. That's no reason to quit doing it, because most of the time it doesn't happen to us. And guys that say it can't be done, well, of course it can't be done if you don't do things right. Take all the precautions you got to take in order to make it work. But anyway, the deer was snorting over there. And later on, we checked the area, and there were some good-sized beds in there. They were obviously beds made by big buck droppings there, and big buck tracks in the mud or in the snow. But for some reason or another, this buck decided that was a good place to be. And maybe he saw John moving in there, he saw some motions in there. You know, they see in the dark as well as they can see by day. When he's coming up that hill, usually you didn't have to worry about it until you got up close to the stand. And from there on, you had to be really careful getting in there. And the stand site was on top of a rocky outcropping, about 15 feet above the slope, where all the feeding area is down below, and almost straight down in front of this rocky outcropping. And up on top was a stack of dead trees that went down a storm, a nice, beautiful blind up there. And he had to keep low getting up to it, and he put stool down, and then get your head net down over your face, and gloves on, that kind of thing, before you peek up over the top to see what's going on out there. Well, this deer was snorting over there, and he caught John's scent, and maybe some movements as well. He's looking up that way, he smells a human, and started snorting, and he took off. And that ruined that area that year. Well, the next year, he went up there and was really careful about it this time. Now the wind was from the south, and when he went in, and but it happened again, snorting down there, same kind of thing all over again, same kind of big buck, great big tracks and beds in that grass down there. And why it decided to bed there, I don't know. Maybe it was a precaution that it decided that it has to do because humans come up on that big old rock outcropping up there. So anyway, we talked about that. This year we talked about it during the summer, wondering what we should do about that, or if anything could be done about it, because that doggone feeding area was a sure thing for taking a buck in previous years, almost every year. So what we decided, we thought about it, rather than going all the way around the mountain, let's pick a trail. You know, deer trails, they're going everywhere in there. We take a set of deer trails and go around through the heavy timber, just around the north side of that feeding area, staying well back in the timber, and make kind of a U-shaped trail going to the stand site, making sure that the last part of it is well hidden from that open little bay-like area just south of where that stand site is. So being real careful about it. So there were a couple of advantages to doing that. You didn't have to make that big, huge, long detour in the dark. And this last year would have been really tough because of the water on the trail caused by the beater flooding that stream down there. But you didn't have to make that long trip. And the other one was, you didn't have to struggle up that hill where you're probably most vulnerable to being detected by deer, because, you know, when you're going up through a heavily forested slope to get up on top, you're going to make some noise. You might even slip in the snow if it's snowy, you know, and things like that. And so you're going to make some noise. And going around like that, you didn't have to do that. There was one disadvantage, and it was a bad one. That trail could only be used when the wind was from the south. Any other direction, things were, it was, you know, well, maybe southeast, south, or southwest. It had to be from that direction. Because when you're going around the north side, if you got a northwest wind or a west wind, maybe even a west with the wind fanning out, your scent would be blowing all across that clear cut or that area or the feeding area long before you get there. So you knew that was going to happen, so it had to have a south wind. So anyway, that was the thing. Well, he made the trail, marked it with tacks and all that kind of thing. Well, the first time, the first few days of the hunting season, Saturday, well, you got a big 10-pointer on Saturday. Sunday, Monday, the wind was wrong. It never from the south. And but he decided, you know, that he could get a little closer to this area, not the feeding area itself. He decided to do some progressive hunting, starting out several blocks away from a little deer trail that goes into that feeding area from the west. And so with the winds blowing from different directions, one day he decided he was going to stay well back from a bunch of big boulders that are out there, where he could keep an eye on the area where this woods, this big forest area, really heavy forest area, separates the place where he sat from that feeding area over there. So deer might be coming out on this side of that forest area. And but he didn't see anything there. Okay, next time he tried it was on Tuesday. Well, Tuesday was when he had a south wind, right? East, southeast. And then, gee, that's kind of ideal. He could get a little closer to that feeding area. And so he did that. He went, and he got in a place where he could watch a major deer trail on that morning, but still not where he wanted to be. He was still quite a ways from that. But while he was sitting there, he had a younger buck, a 6-pointer, go by him in a hurry. Probably a dominant breeding buck there, probably attacked him or something and started chasing him away, so he started moving out of there pretty fast. Yeah, a younger buck like that, he's in danger with a big dominant breeding buck with breeding going on. So he went by, but John let him go by, and so anyway, that was it for that day. Well, still waiting for that ideal wind. And so being patient about this, you know, and not screwing up by, you know, progressively hunting in that direction, but never getting to where his wind would be getting into the area where those deer normally would feed. So finally the day came on Wednesday. I went in there early Wednesday morning and on his new trail. You know, we saved about 2 miles of hiking. Went on the new trail, but we had a lot of snow during the night. The snow was covering his tracks, and he was having an off time getting there. And you couldn't depend on his flourisome tracks this morning. You know, he had to go by memory, and he finally did. He finally got close to his stand site, but about then, some deer started snoring. And oh no, not again. And one of them straight ahead, toward the south, and one of them over on the right, on the west side of the feeding area. But you know, this is really ridiculous. How could this happen? You know, he had seen fresh deer sign on the way in on his new trail. He found a bed, tracks, and was thinking, well, maybe it was one of those deer, or maybe it was going ahead of him and started snorting. But anyway, he finally decided, well, I might as well get to his stand site, hope for the best. So he got up there and, you know, and felt pretty secure about whether he was being seen or not. He you know, had set things up pretty well with this new approach trail. And this is the thing, now keep this in mind. If you ever find a stand sign, you think this is really great. A lot of buck sign in the immediate area. Everything looks really good. Boy, you can't wait for opening morning, and you get there and it's a dud. Or let's say here's a stand. I got a big buck here last year, and I saw another one the year before, and I really like this spot, and it turns out to be a dud. Your stand trail is probably at fault. You know, when you're sitting in a tree, if you're a good stander, you realize you got to have cover up there as well as us guys that like to hunt at ground level. Got to have good cover. Let's say you got good cover, like say a bunch of evergreens or red oaks that hide your silhouette in the bright sky up there where you are. You got that, and a pretty good cover getting in there, maybe, or maybe not. But when you're sitting in a tree, the first time the big buck in the area comes close to you, he probably doesn't know you're there, at least to begin with. The likelihood that he is going to find you before you see him is pretty good there. But you can be lucky if you're sitting really still, not moving, not making any noise, and here comes the big buck. First time he comes. Well, the first time he comes, it might be from behind you. You know, you can't dictate or predict exactly where that buck is going to be when you see him, but all you know is he's active in this area right now, today. A few minutes ago, maybe, he's here, close, or he will be, as long as he wasn't alarmed in the process of you getting there. Well, let's say you got to your stand site and everything was perfect, and you couldn't wait to get there and didn't see a darn thing all morning, or even all day, not a darn thing. Well, chances are, the odds are that he got you when you were approaching. You didn't take all the precautions, or worse, you didn't have good cover at ground level to hide your moving silhouette on the way there. Or you didn't have a clean trail. You didn't get rid of all the dead branches in your trail, so you weren't stepping on, big twigs that snapped loudly on your foot. Things like that. If you don't do that, then you're almost surely going to waste your time. You've got to have an approach trail that enables you to get there that any nearby buck doesn't, he can't tell what you are. He can't identify you. You're coming from downwind or crosswind, got really good cover, and then you're moving steadily rather than stopping every once in a while like a hunting wolf would do. So you're not hunting when you're just moving steady. You don't stop, you see. Then you get there and it's real quiet and you're all set then. And I've explained why beforehand. But your trail is probably the number one reason your stand site failed to be good, became a dud. And so thinking about that, what you really need is a better approach trail, one that hides you better there, or you need to pick a different stand site nearby that gives you a really good stand trail that hides you, and on a trail where you aren't going to make a lot of noise getting there. You see what I'm trying to say? You'll be much better off moving or creating a new stand site like we did with this stand. Well, on Wednesday it didn't work. And I'll explain why. John got up there to his stand site and got all set and peeked up over the top, and here was this deer. He heard a deer to the south snorting, and then this deer across maybe 100 yards away on the other side of this feeding area, and he looked over there, and it was snorting, not snort, but fairly often, and it was standing there, it was facing south. And he thought, that's kind of weird, there must be something down there that this deer is snorting at, it wasn't him. So he carefully got his gun up and using a scope and looking down there to the south, and he couldn't see anything moving down there. It was just these two big dark boulders down there, black boulders. Then it occurred to him those boulders didn't have snow on top, and all the other boulders in the area had snow on top, and he went back and looked. And all of a sudden one of them, something moved, and it turned out to be the head of a cow moose. And then he looked at the other one, and that moved, and it had antlers on it. And it was a bull moose, and they were bedded. And that doe over there was really furious about that. Now, I don't know, I didn't realize whitetails were afraid, fearful of moose. Maybe the bull chases them away, or the cow chased them away from a calf one time, and they're afraid of them. I don't know, but it was probably likely both of those deer. That one went straight south. Down, you know, the wind was blowing toward John, but it was up there. He couldn't smell John, and his Doppler could hear him or see him even. But this one over here, they were both facing that way. Probably you couldn't see that one, but you could see this one. It was the moose that caused the problem. Well, it didn't matter why they were snorting, but all that snorting really screwed up that stand site or that hunting area for a while. You know, we've learned in the past, something like that happens for whatever reason. If it was you or you shot a deer or something like that, if the deer were right there and boy, they were really alarmed when they took off and their danger sense pouring out of their tarsal glands when they go, and that tarsal scent is going to be hanging around for at least 4 days, maybe 5 days afterwards, and warning all deer that are in the area something is dangerous or was, so they're going to be extra cautious. Usually, you know, we've learned in the past, if you go to a stand site that you really thought was going to be good and everything else was okay, but nothing happened, it sometimes works out. Not always, sometimes works. Go back there 5 or more days later. Do everything just right going in there. And bingo, it worked finally. You know, everything worked just right at that time. So, kind of depends on, you know, whether you really scared some deer pretty badly to start with or not. You know, if you went there Saturday and didn't hear a thing and didn't see any deer, there was no big damage done except for the fact that if they smelled you there, they got you pegged for that stand site. But maybe that didn't happen. You know, maybe the big buck was somewhere else because the doe was in the heat, maybe over the hill or a mile away. You know, so those things happen. So anyway, but if you keep using it every day, you know, sooner or later, every deer that lives in that vicinity is going to know you're there. And usually sooner, and especially if it's a big buck. They're so good at finding hunters in trees nowadays, or on the ground. So you got to keep that in mind. But if you know, we don't overuse our stand sites. Generally, most of the stand sites we use are only used once a season, period, for a half a day. Sometimes we'll use one twice in a season, like 5 days later, because gee, nothing happened, I'm going to try it again 5 days later. That's a good rule, you know. Some more good tips to think about. That's a really good one. So anyway, finally John left that place, not seeing any deer, of course, that morning. Well, you saw the doe, but no buck showed up, right? Well, what is it? The following day, John takes a buck behind camp. And you already know all about that one. That was kind of an interesting thing. Beautiful 8-pointer. I think his son Jimmy and I are going to shadow him closely wherever he goes during the next 2 days. Great job, John. The year of John. 2 nice bucks this year. Big 10-pointer and now this nice 8-pointer. Yeah, that's great. So here we are. We have progressive stand hunting going on. We had a new trail to restore the effectiveness of a buck stand site, which was kind of goofed up by a couple of moose the first time he got in there. So then he leaves it alone for 5 days. Meanwhile, takes a nice big buck right behind camp. Well, then he's waiting again for a south wind to finally give it a try. And that patience pays off too. When you start saying, you know, if you're stuck with one stand site, you're not going to just sit in the car or in camp for days and days without hunting if the wind's wrong. You know, we've got lots of alternatives we can use. Each one of us. It doesn't matter what direction the wind's blowing. When the wind's blowing, so I got just a stand site for this wind. And so that's where we're going to head. We might not make it because on the way we might run across really fresh tracks of a big buck, maybe with a doe. He was dragging himself from track to track in snow, or the doe was in heat because there's her urine and it's got blood in it. You know, things like that will make us change our mind that quick. But that's the point when you're using a stool. to hunt at ground, you can react quickly to things like that. And that's good. That's excellent buck hunting. Always, you know, understanding deer signs, and those that are that will improve your odds for hunting, we react quickly to them. But meanwhile, we've always got alternatives we can use to hunt somewhere. But anyway, so John had to wait till Saturday, second week of hunting, before we again had a south wind. And this time he went in on this new trail again. Everything worked perfectly. No snorting all the way to Expand side. Well, they got up there, and about 45 minutes after we sat down, here was a buck and a doe. And was there a fawn? Yeah. A buck and a doe and a fawn on the far side of that feeding area, feeding. And over there on that side, brush is pretty thick, and a lot of second growth poplar, or quaking aspen, better known, that's their better known name, but growing there, a lot of it was 6, 7, 8 feet tall already, and boy, it can be like hair on a dog's back, you know, really thick where it's coming up. And they were in that kind of stuff, eating browse, red osiers, and that, oh, there's a lot of red osiers there. It's a fairly good sized feeding area, and it's always been popular for deer in there because of those red osiers when they turn to eating browse, which is usually by the beginning of the second week in November. All these things we know, see. You don't have to go out there and look to see it's going to happen. It's happening. Right, here it is. Today's the 8th. They're eating browse now. So anyway, so he got out there and he's watching them, and he could see one was a buck. But it was some dude like, you know, in the beginning, and they were in this cover, and he couldn't, the antlers are probably about the same shades as the brush and stuff around him. It's hard to see. Got his gun up, he has a bipod. He's sitting there in the stand, he's got the bipod up in front of him, he can put his gun across him. He sat there with that bipod on the deer for 20 minutes, waiting for an open shot. You know, it takes patience too, you know. A lot of guys, oh, it's about to throw their gun up and start shooting, you know. I got a 23 shot automatic here. You just start shooting like crazy at that deer. We don't do that. We want one shot kills, humane kills. Drop them in their tracks, kill. That's our big goal. We don't want any wounded deer running around the woods. We don't want them suffering. One shot, down they go. 7mm Magnums, boy, they're one-shot cartridge. So anyway, watching them, and finally they come into what looks like a nice opening there. You can see them pretty plain then. Oh, yeah, that's a buck, all right. And there's lots of points on this antler. So you can't pass that one up. I don't know if you think Dad might be mad when he hears this shot, but because that's the end of our hunting, all our licenses will be filled with this one. And you know, we decided that this is going to be here one is going to be tough. Only 5 deer per square mile, and we'd be lucky to get 4 mature bucks this year. And there's number 4, and that'll be disappointing. But then we're going home tomorrow. So it isn't like we can be. We're not going to hunt another week here. We got to head home tomorrow. But so there it is, and so. Perfect shot, you got the shooting a little high on the chest there, and pull the trigger and pow! Nothing happens. In fact, John saw a snow kick up underneath the buck, between the legs. Snow kick up. What's going on? Well, one of the problems with 7mm and 270 same way, I used to hunt with a 270 a lot. They're not so-called brush guns. Now, that 7mm is moving along at like 3,300 feet per second. That's a really fast-moving cartridge, and it's not big 30 caliber bullet or bigger. It's a little thin cartridge, but deadly, and. But if it hits a twig, a twig it only has to be like a 1/2 inch in diameter. is in the way. When that bullet strikes it, it might ricochet, or the bullet might explode, go to pieces. My biggest buck I ever got did that after I had a little ashtray. Hit the buck in 5 places, like shooting it with buckshot. And but it was fatal. But that doesn't always happen, you know. And I've had it. Everybody in my hunting gang has had this happen where you're shot in this heavy, brushy country that we have, and nothing happened. It didn't hit the deer. How could that happen? That's impossible. Well, John didn't wait around, so he just kind of shifted a little bit and aimed real good at the chest again. And the deer were just standing there looking around like they're wondering, was that thunder or what, you know? And pow! And that time, the buck took off, running straight away. Went up into the woods on the opposite side. That's big, heavy timber, big pine trees in there. Disappeared into there. And John was saying, you know, the 2 deer he had taken before had dropped in their tracks. This one didn't. And that kind of worried him a little bit. He says, I hope I didn't just wound that thing, you know. And that bothered him. And he thought about it. Well, John waited 45 minutes. He thought, well, he'll wait because it ran. And the idea there is to give it time to lay down and have shock take over, you know. And that can kind of pin a deer to a spot so that a quietly moving hunter can get close enough for a finishing shot if necessary. So he was thinking that, so he waited 45 minutes. Meanwhile, I heard a shot and I thought, well, he'll be coming out of the woods pretty soon. You know, the 2 other deer, he left one behind the camp. In 15 minutes he was in the tent smiling and telling us all about it. I figured it was going to be another deal like that. And John knew where it was. And but I left my stand site. It was a perfect spot. Geez, I love that spot. I can't wait to hunt there next year. But anyway, so I went back to this trail that John used to go in to, and sat down by that on my stool waiting for him. And I waited and waited and waited. And pretty soon an hour went by, and finally here he comes. And unlike those 2 other deer, after he shot those, he wasn't smiling. He was looking kind of serious, you know. So he got to where I was, and we talked about that a little bit. And so I was asking him about deer sign. He said, yeah, he followed it, and he found a place where it laid down. But it wasn't there anymore. It got up and went. And he asked me about other sign, and one of the really important signs, if you did a good shot, you know, chest shot where you got the lungs, wherever the deer, you know, if it's bounding, wherever it hits the ground, there'll be a little fine spray of blood, a little tiny blood drop. You spray it on the snow on both sides of the deer. Well, I asked him about it. They said, yeah, you know, he's had that. And right then I said, well, go get the toboggan and your camera gear, because you got that deer. It probably didn't go very far at all from where you left this trail. We'll find it, you know, real close by there. I said, you got the deer. I remember when my daughter Peggy got her first one, and she said she missed it because, well, you know, because it ran away. I said, she shot it from 11 feet, sitting on a down poplar up to shoot about 10 feet of the ground, and the buck came right up, was standing right there. She shot it with a 410 with a slug, single slug. You didn't miss that deer, and sure enough she didn't. It was just, it went about 100 yards and went down, and there it was. So it's a similar kind of thing. I was certain of that. So before long, John came back, and so we got up. We were going up that hill there with the toboggan and the camera there. And I don't think it was more than 25 yards from where that deer had laid down. There it was. And it was a perfect shot, really. How that deer went as far as it did, I don't know, after being hit by a 7mm Magnum, but it happened, and so, but it turned out really well. John did just excellent shooting this whole past hunting season, and that was really great. But nice buck, a 9-pointer, The only reason it was not a 10-pointer because on one side it was just a little bit of a raise on the main beam where there should have been up to 10th point. So basically it was a 10-pointer, but it would turn out to be a net. But another nice dominant breeding buck. And it was a good one, a nice buck. So I'm pretty proud of him.
Well, this is my third buck of the season. This last day that Dad and I are hunting is Saturday.
Day 8.
Day 8, yeah. But this buck showed up with a doe and her fawn about 100 yards behind me here. About 60, 70 yards on the other side I have a ground blind. And I took my shot. I really took my time and aimed and had a bipod and everything. He didn't flinch. Totally missed. I had a deflection. So anyhow, I quickly did a second shot at the center of mass, went through the chest right here, high in the lungs. He went about 100, 150 yards total in his loop there before he went down. But another nice buck from a ground blind.
That's 4 out of 5 this year so far.
Yeah, four of them were from ground blinds. Yeah. So, anyhow, that's it for our quota of mature bucks. My nephew got a forky.
Time to pack up and go home.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe my brother Dave or my brother Ken might get something else today, but we'll see. But as far as Dad and I are concerned, it's been a great season.
Yeah.
So.
When he got down to the spot where the deer were when he fired at the buck, he found urine on the ground with spots of blood in it. So that doe was in estrus. So that dominant breeding buck was with the doe in estrus. So again, every one of the bucks we took this year, the big bucks, was a dominant breeding buck, and every one of them was either approaching or accompanying a doe in heat at the time when they were taken. So, you know, that first phase of the 2-week period of the rut was going on when we got there, and that sure contributed greatly, especially with snow around, making it easy to find signs like doe in heat. You know, the urine was blood spots, and you wouldn't see that if you didn't have snow. It'd be pretty hard. But anyway, made a big difference. So it almost made it too easy, at least for one guy in the group. My son John, he still can't quit smiling about all that. So that's great. You know, proud of him. Yeah, you know, I always feel good when the kids get deer and grandkids. I'm proud as can be of them. I'm going to have another grandson in camp for the first time this coming year, and we start the process of making a woodsman out of him, you know, a reliable one. It's got to be in that huge roadless area we hunt. Boy, you don't want to turn a little kid loose in that without him being a good woodsman and then a good hunter. So, but it's fun. I'm having fun in my old age seeing great grandsons or grandsons becoming hunters. And who knows, maybe I'll live long enough to see a great-grandson become one too. But anyway, if I'm not, you know, my boys are all excellent woodsmen and excellent hunters. They've pretty well taken over for me. I spent quite a bit of time in camp this year and cooking and that kind of thing. And even if I couldn't get in the woods, I'd be there just to be in camp. And that's, to me, that's half the fun of deer hunting. And so it doesn't bother me that I didn't. The big one I wanted to get, I finally saw him. Well, and he was big, but the shot was long, and I won't take an iffy shot at a buck. And that would have been a pretty iffy one. And so I watched him go. So that was, but it was a really good hunting season for us. But in each case, you know, I've talked to you now about taking each of the 4 mature bucks we took this year. All had something to do with breeding, you know, the breeding phase of the rut in progress, but all under different circumstances. And you see, that's the way it's, you gotta, if you're gonna be a successful buck hunter, you've got to be able to react according to the circumstances and do it quickly. You know, get yourself a stool so you can react quickly. Anyway, hopefully, if you talk nice to Santa Claus, you're going to get your book for Christmas this year. And if you didn't, you know, if you didn't carry out the garbage, or you said some bad words, you know, in front of the kids, or you don't go to church, you watch a Viking game instead, or something like that, you know, and so you got on that Santa's bad list or something. Well, after Christmas sometime, go ahead and order a book. You know, your wife won't mind. She'll be happy because you'll be happy. You'll be studying this thing, you'll be turning pages on this thing all this coming summer and, you know, spring, summer, and fall. And if you do, you know, if you learn one of those 6 ways, 7, 8 ways, variations that I teach you, they're all in the book here, you're going to start seeing bucks, and you're going to start taking bucks, you know, nice bucks, bucks from the wall. You will, honestly, truly. And you'll be forever glad you got, you'll be looking at this buck every year the rest of your life before hunting seasons. And even then, hunting season, you'll probably take this camp and, gee, what do I do now? You know, there's something's going on out there. You know, like today, I found this really fresh ground script. And I don't remember what I was supposed to do. But you get back to camp, and by that time maybe it's too late, you know, because you have to respond quickly to something like that. You can't just go there next day and expect to take a buck there. You have to do it now. And when you do it now, you maybe in 15 minutes, the buck will show up, just like that quickly. That's why you got to react quickly. But these are things you're going to learn in the book, you know. So it gets to be a lot of fun, you know. You get to be versatile. Your tackle box for hunting deer gets to be filled with a lot of things for different situations, and that's what you want. To be regularly successful, you can't be stuck with one stand or one approach to hunting, and it's 30-some precautions you got to learn how to take to be regularly successful. Lots of things like that. So anyway, when you get a chance, order the book. And like I say, you'll be really glad you did. And don't wait to the last minute, because there's so much there. You can't cover all this, you know, a week or two before hunting. But I had a really flood of orders just before the hunting gun hunting season started all across America. Oh, these poor guys, they get this book now. That's not going to help you very much. If they'd had it a month or so ago, it would help a lot. But it'll be great for next year. Yeah, that'll make a lot of difference. So, you know, each of the bucks we took, the mature bucks, and, you know, and it's not including that yearling that one of my grandsons took, but that's a different kind of hunting. That's more luck on that case. But each one of the older bucks that we took, they're all dominant breeding bucks. Everything you know, each one was taken under different circumstances in different ways. And every one of those differences, you know, and reasons for them are all listed and explained in the book. You know, why we did this and why we did that, and the way things worked out, and all things for you to know. You know, you are going to love hunting after you've mastered what is being taught in this book. You're just going to love hunting. You just won't be able to wait till the coming year to be out there, knowing that you're probably going to take a good buck this year. You can't wait for that. And you know, that makes you such a better hunter. You become more thorough, more cautious, take more precautions. You know, that in itself, knowing you're probably going to take a big buck when you go out there this next year. That'll make you a better hunter. And you'll read this book more seriously and look at and learn the things that are in it more seriously than you would otherwise. And stop being influenced by other people who say, oh, that doesn't work, you can't do that, you can't do this in Alabama or in Texas or whatever. Cut that out. Don't be influenced by that thinking. Because I've studied whitetails over much of America, and I know what I'm talking about when I wrote this book. So you're just going to love hunting so much more after you learn to use those different techniques that are taught in this book. So, anyway, with that, thanks again, you guys, for ordering all my books. I've been getting a lot of letters from guys that tried this or that from the book, and they sent me pictures of bucks they've taken and thanked me. First decent buck I ever got in my life. I've gotten a lot of letters like that. It makes me feel really good that I've helped people like you become better buck hunters. With that, before you sign off, really, do me a favor and press that button, subscribe for my YouTube channel. I need that to be able to continue doing what I'm doing right now. And also poke that thumbs up button. That's as important, really. And because I got to get those numbers, keep them up there so that I can continue to provide you with seminars like this. And there's going to be lots more in the future. So, with that, thanks again, guys. Have a Merry Christmas. You and your kids, have fun this year, the winter. And we'll see you again soon. Be sure to visit my website. Here's the link. Here you'll find links to my blog posts, my Twitter account, my YouTube account, my Amazon store with links to my ebooks, my son's eBay store, a money saver if you're ordering from Canada or other countries, my website bookstore, and much more.